Resuming debate, the honourable member for Parkdale-High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to speak in support of Bill C-584, and I'm following on the heels of my colleague from Newmarket, Aurora, and she's just told us some very positive stories based on her personal experience, and I have no doubt that there are positive stories and positive experiences with the extractive sector. I'm from the city of Toronto, and our stock exchange, of course, is heavily invested in the extractive sector. I, too, have been to the Prospectors and Developers Association conference in Toronto for a few years now, and it's a wonderful, huge international gathering of representatives from the extractive sector. We're very, very proud to host that major international convention in our city of Toronto. So let me say, to begin with, that there are very many positive role models and examples of companies in the extractive sector that we look to as leaders both here in Canada and around the world. But sadly, that is not the case for all companies in all parts of the world. And I have very little time to speak, but let me begin by citing an article that came out recently, and it will speak for itself. Tens of thousands of Colombians took to the streets of Bucaramanga, the country's sixth largest city, last month, and this article is from the CBC, written last year, last month to defend their water supply from a Canadian-owned gold mining project. The chief target of their protests was Vancouver-based Echo Oro Minerals Corporation. The company is exploring for gold and silver in a high-altitude, environmentally sensitive area that is the main source of water for Bucaramanga's 1 million inhabitants. This was the fourth anti-gold mining demonstration in the area since 2010 and one of the biggest. But Echo Oro shouldn't feel singled out. It is only one in a string of Canadian mining and exploration companies that have drawn the ire of local communities around the world. I'm still citing from this article. On March 12th, for example, more than 10,000 Greeks protested in Thessaloniki against several gold mining projects owned by Vancouver-based Eldorado Gold. Then on March 21st, Catholic priests marched with 5,000 locals in Matagalpa, Nicaragua, against a project owned by Vancouver-based B2 Gold Corporation. Canadian companies have also been targeted in Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Dominican Republic, Slovakia, Romania, and Israel. Canada is very well represented in global mining conflicts because, in large part, Canada is the home of most of the junior mining companies of the world, says Ramsey Hart, the Canada Program Coordinator at Mining Watch, an Ottawa-based advocacy group. The reason for this, he says, is that Canada has a favorable environment for high-risk, speculative investments, the kind that drives international mineral exploration. Unlike the U.S. Alien Tort Statute, which allows foreign citizens to bring American companies to U.S. courts for abuses committed in a foreign country, there are no mechanisms to hold Canadian companies overseas accountable for their social and environmental policies. We've just completely dropped the ball, Ramsey says. Now, the article continues. The last attempt to impose minimum standards on Canadian companies was a bill sponsored by the opposition Liberals that would have set international standards for human rights and the environment for gas, oil, and mining companies operating abroad, and would have made government, political, and financial support contingent on compliance. Bill C-300, however, was defeated by 6 votes in a minority parliament 2.5 years ago. And it's unfortunate that during that vote, New Democrats joined and supported. However, 17 Liberals were absent, and it's unfortunate because they would have been enough to carry that vote, and we would have had action on this file. But thank goodness for the New Democrat member of Parliament from La Pointe de Lille and for her bill on corporate social responsibility in the extractive sector, because what is being proposed in this bill is exactly what we need, Mr. Speaker. It is a bill that would create an ombudsman, a corporate social responsibility ombudsman for the extractive companies doing business in other countries. Exactly what this news article was talking about. And it would allow Canada to really live up to the reputation that we want to have abroad, a country that believes in social justice, that believes in protecting the environment, that believes in defending human rights. This is the image that Canadians surely appreciate in our country when we travel abroad. It's the image we want to portray, and we don't want, whether inadvertently or intentionally, for companies which can be seen as ambassadors for Canada, we don't want them to let us down on any of these fronts. So the bill proposed by our colleague from La Pointe-de-l'Île and before us today in the House would respect our commitments under international law and the International Bill of Rights by creating an Office of the Ombudsman, which would require corporations to report to the office on their extractive activities. It would give the Ombudsman the responsibility for developing guidelines on best practices for the extractive activities and require the Ombudsman to table an annual report on how companies around the world are doing to this very House of Commons and therefore to the people of Canada. Very, very important. Now, as I began by saying, Canada is a world leader in the extractive sector. We are very proud of that. Close to 75% of the world's extractive companies are headquartered in Canada. However, many of the countries in which these companies operate sometimes have fragile democracy, may not enforce human rights or environmental standards as well as Canadians or the citizens in those countries would like. And sometimes the mining companies with their business endeavors can create instability in these so-called host countries. Sometimes these countries lack either the political will or the capacity, the ability to enforce protective measures that would actually defend the citizens that they should represent. But we believe that Canadians do have some responsibility, and the measure that's being proposed here is a measure that other countries around the world have taken. Now, I will give the government credit. They have taken some action. They created an extractive sector counselor, a counselor, and as the name suggests, it was really counseling businesses. It had no power to actually do anything. It in essence turned the responsibility for corporate behavior over to the very corporations that are responsible for the behavior. So a bit of a conflict of interest. It hasn't stopped this government when it comes to rail safety or food safety or any other sector of the economy that ought to be regulated by government, but that's what they have done here. This councillor has no ability to enforce anything, no authority to do anything. It has not been able to achieve anything, and in fact their only councillor that they appointed resigned in frustration with one end to go before the end of her term. That was last October, and the position today remains vacant. That's how seriously this government treats corporate social responsibility in the extractive sector. It clearly doesn't. Now, this is an important issue for Canadians. More than 600,000 Canadians have supported this campaign since 2006, and the campaign has found friends in the Corporate Network for Social Accountability, in groups like Amnesty International, Peace and Development, Mining Watch Canada, but it has also found support in people like Tony Andrews, the Executive Director for the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, Pierre Gratton, President and CEO of the Mining Association of Canada, and Reg Manhas, the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility for Talisman. So This is clearly something that is long overdue. It's something Canadians want. It's something this government should finally achieve, and this House should vote in favor of Bill C-584. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.